This Is Your President segment, because we do love that segment here on the show, and we don't want to run out of time to get to it today. We had a couple of clips of your president, and truly, folks, this is something you never get tired of, right?
I thought when you sent the show prep that we were just talking about Biden. This is your president, the whole show. And so I was ecstatic.
Your hopes
those
were
are my
up.
favorite.
Well, I hate to dash your hopes, but we're not going to stay on Biden the whole show. But, when you look at the inflation numbers, the reason we're starting out with the This Is Your President, we're going to get to the inflation later in the show. When you look at the inflation numbers, which they've tried to blame on Vladimir Putin, we've seen that. We've seen that excuse deployed by the White House, and we could even talk some more about that situation. In other words, you don't think they maybe wanted to get us into a situation where there's a distraction for the disaster that they caused? That couldn't be the case. They couldn't. The tail would never wag the dog like that. We would never try to get drawn into a situation where we're in kind of what amounts to a not quite hot war with Russia in order to distract from the economic disaster that Biden's caused at home. But if you look at the inflation numbers on a chart, over time you will see that they started rising literally the day after Biden was inaugurated. And they have rocketed up since then. I mean, and these are just the reported numbers, and we'll tell you some more details about that. But before we get to all of that, I see, Pat, somebody has called in. Pat, you put them on hold. Before we go ahead. What do
we have Eddie on the line that wants to talk about inflation.
Oh, good. Well, all right. Let's talk about inflation then, Eddie. Welcome to the Morgan Streetman Show. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I just got to tell this story because it blows my mind. So, driving with my kid this weekend, stopped at Dollar General. Out an item he wants, some toy. Comes back with a wiffle ball and a bat. Just a regular plastic cheap bat with a cheap plastic ball. What would cost $1 or $2? Ring it up, it was $7.
Wow. $7 for a wiffle ball bat and a wiffle ball now. I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Plastic, cheap, mass-produced Chinese, cheap plastic, everything you would imagine, as cheap as you can envision in your mind, that. And it was $7 plus tax.
Well, this was a lie that I think we were all sold, Eddie. I mean, I remember years ago purchasing an industrial fan, and it was Chinese made, and it came in, and, it wasn't that expensive. It was actually a little cheaper than what you'd pay for something made in the U.S., made out of steel, etc. But this Chinese fan was mostly made out of plastic, and yes, it was cheaper at the time, but as the years went by and we continued purchasing those goods, which we then have to purchase every couple of years because they will break. They've got this built-in planned obsolescence. They're designed to break after a couple of years, so you have to buy another one, and you have to keep replacing them. And what I've seen now is the price of those fans has risen to the point where now you're actually spending more than you would have spent for like the American-made product. We're going back a few years, 10, 15 years ago, but the point is that now the prices are higher. You're getting a lower quality product that you've got to replace all the time. And I've got an old steel fan that I inherited that was made in America. I don't know when it was made, but it looks like it was made probably in the 60s. And the darn thing still runs today, and it runs great. And every time you plug it in and turn it on, it runs. And then, you've got these series of Chinese fans that are made out of plastic and cheaper materials that have broken on purpose. So not only are we not experiencing the lower prices that were promised from the manufacturing in China, but now we're having to replace everything more often. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're facing there with a $7 wiffle ball bat.
Well, and I think in Florida we're a little insulated from some of the recessionary experiences in other parts of the country because there's so much money flooding into the state because people want and love freedom. But in other states, I mean, you know how poor people are in some areas of the country. I couldn't imagine Appalachia, parts of South Carolina, Mississippi. Like, what is going on? How are people surviving? I mean, pretty soon it's going to be the story here if they don't get a hold of it.
Yeah, I want to bring something up that I've noticed, and I'd be curious, Eddie, to see if you've noticed the same, or Morgan, if you have, or Pat. But when I've been dining out recently, especially, I feel so bad for the restaurants. This isn't a knock on them, but like at local places, mom and pop places, places I've gone to for years that I've always counted on the quality. I go there because it's consistent.
Yeah.
And you can tell that something has changed about the quality of meat that is being offered.
Oh, yeah.
The price has gone up, but also the quality is different.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that the quality is significantly down in the food that you're getting. Also, the quality of service. I think you've noticed this, Roxanne. You go to these places, and look, I know the service. I was in the service industry years ago. I know it's a tough business to be in. It can sometimes be a thankless job. That being said, I've gotten to where I've noticed a real kind of an attitude from people, and I don't mean that, but they just don't seem happy to be there. Let's put it that way.
You know what I blame some of that on? Because they were wearing masks for so long, and so you didn't have to make a facial expression when you had your mask on. You didn't have to smile. Oh, here's your food. Here you go. You could just be neutral about it. And now the masks are off, and we all forgot how to smile.
Everybody's doing the RBF, as they call it, right? Yeah. Well, Eddie,
I'll jump in real quick, too, because I want to say on the quality of food, I've had to stop eating certain kinds of candies that I've eaten for my whole life because I've noticed my stomach gets sick, I don't feel well, and I swear it's got to be that they're cheapening their, proprietary recipe and the ingredients, or something's changing because the M&Ms are not M&Ms of 20, 30 years ago.
You know what? I have not done a study of M&Ms, but I've got to think that you might be onto something there. With the cheap. I mean, we know we're experiencing shrinkflation. They're shrinking the size of the packages. They've also got to be shrinking the money that's going into the ingredients that make up those foods. They're shrinking it everywhere because they're trying to hide the inflation from us. And folks, when you hear these numbers on inflation, I mean, it absolutely blows your mind, the level of inflation that we're experiencing now. And that hits those of us in the middle class and the lower classes, particularly the folks who are not uber wealthy, who do not make over $300,000 a year. It hits us particularly hard, and it's going to keep hitting us hard. Eddie, thanks for the call. We're up against a hard break. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.